Thank you all for joining us tonight at the City Council regular meeting on Tuesday, April 20th, 2021. We appreciate you being here. Obviously, we started a little late, so our apologies. We've had a lot of long meetings today, but there's some exciting things on the horizon due to those meetings, so we're very excited for that. But we'll get to that in due time. In the meantime, I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order and invite Pastor Josh Barrett from Church of Celebration to please come forward. He's going to give us our invocation, after which we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Amber Learman. Please rise.
Jesus, thank you so much for being a good God, and thank you so much for being merciful. We are thankful for you being in control of all things, especially in a year or so that seems so out of control. We are honored, Lord, to just give you all the praise that you deserve. I pray tonight specifically divine wisdom to be upon the council of Maricopa, and that you would guide them, that you would direct them, that they would seek to make godly decisions for the future of our city. And we once again are humbled to invite you into this presence tonight, and we pray that your name is forever honored. In your Son's precious name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember, and thank you, Pastor Barrett. We appreciate it. That'll take us to the roll call, please.
Councilmember Learman.
Here.
Councilmember Manfredi.
Here.
Councilmember Marsh.
Here.
Councilmember Vitiello. Here. Councilmember Wade.
Here.
Vice Mayor Smith. Mayor Price.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Great, thank you very much. At this time, we do have a proclamation at this time. Is Chief Hughes in the room? Please come forward. Good. What's that? Please, by all means. Absolutely. Well, where's your in and out sticker? Well, honestly, I think it's been a year since we've had this many people in the chamber, so we're pretty excited about this. Doesn't really matter what we're talking about. It's just exciting. It's a good day, right? Thank you, guys. Whereas in 1982, the President's Task Force on Victims of Crime envisioned a national commitment to a more equitable and supportive response to victims. Whereas the commemorative week celebrates the energy, the perseverance, and commitment that launched victims' rights movement and inspired to progress and continues to advance the cause for justice for crime victims. And whereas crime can leave a lasting impact on any person, regardless of age, national origin, race, creed, religion, gender, sexual orientation, immigration, or economic status. And whereas with the unwavering support of their communities and victim service providers behind them, survivors will be empowered to face their grief, their loss, their fear, their anger, and hope without fear of judgment, and will feel understood, heard, and respected. Whereas serving victims and rebuilding their trust restores hope to victims and survivors, as well as supports thriving communities. And we're engaging a broader array of healthcare providers, community leaders, faith organization educators, and businesses can provide new links between victims and services that improve their safety, healing, and access to justice. And whereas honoring the rights of victims, including the rights to be heard and the right to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect, and working to meet their needs rebuilds their trust in the criminal justice and social services systems. And whereas National Crimes Victim Rights Week provides an opportunity to commit to ensuring that all victims of crime, especially those who are challenging to reach and serve, are offered culturally and linguistically accessible and appropriate services in the aftermath of a crime. And whereas the City of Maricopa is hereby dedicated to strengthening victims and survivors in the aftermath of a crime, rebuilding resilience in our communities and our victim responders, and working for a better future for all of our victims and survivors. Now, therefore, I, Christian Price, Mayor of the City of Maricopa, do hereby proclaim the week of April 18th through the 24th as National Crime Victims' Rights Week, and reaffirm the City of Maricopa's commitment to creating a victim service and criminal justice response that assists all victims of crime during Crime Victims' Rights Week and throughout the year, and to express our sincere gratitude and appreciation for those community members, victim service providers, and criminal justice professionals who are committed to improving our responses to all victims of crime so that they may find relevant assistance, support, justice, and most importantly, peace. Give them a big applause. Thank you guys for all you do. Next one will be shorter. You never know. They'll differ. Again, thank you all very much for being here and for all that you do in the community on behalf of our citizens and our victims. At this time, we'd like to move to a report from the mayor and the city council members. So council, I'll turn the time over to you. I'll start with Councilmember Marsh on the end and go to the vice mayor and proceed from there.
So in the last 2 weeks, I attended 10 meetings. On April 7th, the Arizona Commerce Authority put on a broadband seminar, and that's where I learned that we're behind the curve here in Maricopa with respect to broadband speeds. We need to talk with our ISPs, our internet service providers, and find out what their plans are for improving bandwidth in Maricopa. Also on April 7th, council met with the Maricopa Unified School District Board and Dr. Lopman, and we learned how they're handling the pandemic, and they're doing a great job. On the 8th, the Morning Scoop at the Capital Times in Phoenix discussed the state income tax bill that's under consideration in the legislature to switch to a flat tax. This would reduce taxes for the wealthy and would reduce Maricopa's share in income tax revenue by more than $2 million annually. It's got to be defeated. Also on the 8th, the Arizona Department of Water Resources meeting reviewed their best management practices version 5 update. Also on the 8th, the Council on Foreign Relations held a broadband seminar. A lot of broadband action this month. On the 13th, the Pinal County Water Augmentation Authority board meeting announced that we're going to see 85% of normal snowfall in the Rockies. But if the drought conditions persist, we're only going to get 40 to 50% of normal Central Arizona project allotment of water. And the state may go to Tier 2 restrictions unless there's more snowfall. The Morning Scoop on the 13th, several school districts gave their approaches to schooling in a pandemic. It was a fascinating meeting. On the 14th, There was a statewide meeting on progress in the biosciences in Arizona. We're really becoming a hub of bioscience research and development. On the 15th, I attended the Cultural Affairs and Arts Committee, where they voted on what paintings would be in the gallery outside here in the hall. And on the 19th, I met with Judith Zymont. The performing arts in Maricopa have been impacted by the pandemic, and they're running out of funds. So they need to apply for grants, and the city can assist them with that. And that's about it.
Thank you, Councilmember. We appreciate your report. Thank you very much for all you're doing. Vice Mayor Smith.
Yeah, it was a really good 2 weeks and attended several meetings, but the two that I wanted to speak on that I had takeaways from was involving our MUSD joint meeting. One of the biggest takeaways there was exactly how much more we can do in terms of communicating between the MUSD board and the city council. And so during that meeting, there were ideas passed by each other, and we each walked away with different ways of communicating better and ways of helping each other. So I thought it was a very, very productive meeting. And then I definitely enjoyed hearing from that meeting all the things that MUSD School District is doing to improve the school system within Maricopa. I mean, it's pretty fascinating. I believe it's like kindergarten, first and second, they're looking at throwing in teaching Chinese and Spanish and getting them started on the fluent language of a second language. That's pretty exciting. I love that aspect of it. So there are other things that they're doing as well, but it was a really informative meeting and very productive. And then lastly, as Councilmember Marsh mentioned, the arts, the Maricopa Orchestra, which if you're not aware of it, we do have a Maricopa Orchestra. They're actually very talented. They put on a concert live on Zoom, maybe? I can't remember exactly how, but the point is they posted their concert, and it was really quite fascinating and a very good concert. So if you want to just see some local talent that we have here in the city of Maricopa, go look for the video on the Maricopa Orchestra. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmembers. Councilmember Wade.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. It is really good to see the House crowded here tonight. Really appreciate that. Thanks for coming out. I wanted to share my thoughts about the MUSD and Chamber Council meeting as well. I thought it went very well. I thought that it's always a good opportunity to speak with other organizations that we support or that support us, but particularly when it comes to education. And as Vice Mayor said, the ideas that came out of there gives everybody an opportunity to think of something they can do to contribute. They did talk about the new high school as well, or high school, the second high school, not to be confused with high school number 2 or what have you. But it's moving along well, it's progressing well. There's going to be some need on your parts as citizens as it goes along, and that information will come to you as it happens. But I think that hopefully you'll be able to support the effort for the second high school. And as I said, finally, looking at an opportunity to meet with MEDA, which is the Maricopa Economic Development Alliance. Had an opportunity to talk with our public-private partnership partners and get an understanding of the things that we are needed to do in order to boost economic development here in the city of Maricopa, and working together with a group of strong-willed, credible, and supportive individuals, and also a new executive director in the form of Adam Sack. So it is nice to be a part of that organization, to see that there are people who are willing to step up and step forward for Maricopa as we continue to grow and prosper in this community. So thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilor Vidiello, anything? Councilor Learman? Okay, great. Just very quickly here, as so much has been mentioned, nobody likes you anyways. Manfredi. Anything from Councilor Manfredi?
Not much, but I wanted to expand a little bit on the school stuff. When Jim Jordan came to me and he said he wanted to have a meeting, so we put one together that was both of us, the city council and the school board, and we got to talk about things that usually you don't talk about. It just kind of like, that's happening over here, that's happening over here. One of the most important things, I think, is the fact that funding levels for our schools are not where they should be. There should be more funding in our schools. They're working on a couple things. They lost a bond election last year to help build that second high school. But they're being resilient, and they're putting together a plan for the high school with what they have. It's not going to be the best high school in terms of everything that's offered, but it's going to be the best high school in terms of what we can afford for that space at that time. Going forward, there's a lot that has to be done to fix our school system. One of them, of course, is keeping that override that we have in place, because with that is nearly $4 million. And if you were to take $4 million away from our schools today, what do you think is going to happen? It's not going to be good. So that funding is part of your property taxes now, and it'll just stay about the same. So take a look at that when you get a chance. But our school system is doing great things with what they have. One of the most important things they have is called the RAM Academy. And the RAM Academy allows for kids who are credit deficient, kids that did not do well in high school, but they want to graduate. And it allows them to figure it out now in their junior or senior year, instead of getting left back and waiting or just dropping out and taking their GED. It allows them to get that high school diploma on time. And it really escalates the work. So that's part of what they're doing over there. And it makes me proud, because I was one of those kids in high school. I didn't like going to school. I had 3 freshman years in high school. So for me, that kind of a program is something that's innovative and works really well for our kids. So I just wanted to expand on the education stuff, and ditto to a bunch of other meetings. Christian Price got to meet with, Christian Price and I went to lunch with our supervisor, our counter supervisor, this past week. And just being able to tell him and sit with him and talk to him about what's needed here in the city of Maricopa and how he can help us at the county level, and his enthusiasm for helping the city of Maricopa really came through. So, yeah, that's about it for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember. My apologies for skipping you. Councilmember Wade.
I'm sorry, guys, I missed something. If I don't do it, I'm in trouble, big trouble. I want to recognize the rock stars. That is the gymnastics organization that's a part of our community. They are national champions. National champions. So I want to make sure that I recognize them. Hopefully we can get them in to do some demonstrations here for us here at City Council, but I definitely had to make sure I recognize them. They are an outstanding organization, wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We featured them in a small business segment in the State of the City a few years back, and so that's really cool to see how they've progressed into such a phenomenal organization. Not that they weren't from the start, but it's amazing to see how they've grown. So thank you very much. Very briefly here, also attended most of these meetings that other council members did, and it's great to talk to different people and work the room and see how we can help the city from getting to know different people. But in the process, I attended the ever-existent ADOT meeting here this past Friday. Just followed along with what is transpiring in the state. Of course, we're trying to move forward on the 347 fixes and the things along those lines. And so there are movements happening, and so that's a good sign. But again, a long way to go still, but we're getting there. And then last but not least, also was mentioned by Councilmember Marsh that one of the things that we are going to start probably hearing about or talking about a lot more, and certainly you're going to hear it tonight as they are on our agenda, and that's the topic of water. This is an interesting topic when it comes to the state of Arizona, and if you haven't grown up here or you haven't paid enough attention, water is a big deal, and this is what happens when you live in a desert. And so we take a lot of that for granted when we turn on our faucets, and it just works, which is great. But the reality is there's some real possible changes coming down the pipeline. So those are things we need to be aware of. And so the city's going to do, its active part, but certainly appreciate Ron and his team being here tonight to talk more about that. So with that, we'll go ahead and conclude the reports from us and move to the report from the city manager. Nothing at this time from the city manager. Thank you. That'll take us to the call to the public at this time. I don't have any speaker cards, which is what I usually go to first, and that's fine. If you have something on your mind and it's on the agenda and you'd like to speak to that item, you can just go to the podium and let me know you'd like to speak to that item when we get there. Or please take the 3 minutes and tell us what's on your mind, and we'd love to hear what's going on. Now, please know that in the call to the public, it's not agendized, for a call and response, and so we can't answer questions or things like that, but certainly want to make sure that if you have questions of us, that we get you those answers, and so we'll direct you to a member of staff. But again, the time is yours, so please approach the podium, tell us your name, and we'll give you 3 minutes to tell us what's on your mind.
Thank you for hearing me. My name's Christine Bellinger, and thank you for serving us. I don't have an item on the agenda, your agenda that you're speaking about, but my purpose for being here is to bring recall to you what I've experienced the last, I would say 2 months, maybe 2.5 months. And before I even get into that, I want to say I've lived here for 13 years, and I am as enthusiastic as each and every one of you are about the schools. I'm not crazy about the new teaching the curriculum for another language. I worked in the school district. I'm retired from the school district, and I would prefer that the children learn at that young age how to sound their letters. I worked in resources, and I worked with preschool, kindergarten, elementary, junior high. And so I'll leave that there. I like the way our city's shaping up with the new building, the new businesses. That's great. No mask. I'm really happy about that. There's so many things that I'm grateful for, but what brings me here today, and I want to start attending, I will start attending, I will support you, I will be vocal, but in the past 2 to 2.5 months, I live in the Glenwild development. There has been a drive-by shooting, a carjacking, and most recently, someone, a disgruntled guest at a party, was slicing the tire of the person who invited them, and he cut his finger off. So while these are very uncomfortable things to have to hear and talk about, that's what's on my mind. So with that being said, now, I'll admit to you that I have not researched this issue that I'm hearing the chatter about, but I do try to talk and get around to just citizens like myself, and let them know what I'm hearing. And I will research so that I can, when I get around, I can be more forthright in expressing what is on the minds of the city councils. Everybody should know. And as you can see, not a whole lot of people are here. So, and I get around. In lieu of the illegal entries coming into our country, I stand here as a grandmother, a mother of hardworking children. We don't want anything free. We just want entry out of the town so my daughter-in-law doesn't have to spend so much time trying to get home till 8 o'clock at night, being gone all day. My son-in-law. We don't want anything for free. We're very happy where we're at, but you know what? We want to be served. We want Maricopa. And with that being said, what I'm hearing about the 911 dispatchers has...
Go ahead and
okay,
finish your
the
comments.
911 dispatchers, that has, and the possibility of them being moved to Chandler, I'm not pleased with that at all. Like I said, I am retired. I do have children. I have grandchildren. I love Maricopa. I've been here. I understand the growth, the crime. I get that. But I just feel like it was stated in this article, a lot of times callers don't know exactly where they are, and they'll just pick out a point of interest. They'll say, I'm at a blue barn. We all know where the blue barn is. And so, you know what? When someone's in trouble, they can't always think. I can't even think, and I'm here 13 years. So with that being said, I'm watching, I'm learning, I will research, and I will ask you to please keep our police dispatchers here. They know us. We have 11. I think 7 of them live here in Maricopa. And I think that we have a large population now, getting larger. And I think that we can take care of our own people. That's what I'd like to see. I want to know when I pick up that phone because of a drive-by shooting, I want to know that it's one of my police officers coming. I mean, I know it's our police officer. I want to know it's my people receiving my call with my tax dollars. So thank you for hearing me. I have a whole lot more to say another time, but I really do pray that you're watching over us in lieu of the illegal entries into our state. And also, just one last note. You know, I've always followed politics, but I haven't really gotten into it. I am a widow, so it's a full-time job being a widow. You have to do the husband's work, you have to do your work, and then you have to do all that in-between stuff. So I'm just hearing, you know, and I guess I just better start getting the newspaper and cutting out articles, because I have heard that Arizona has received money from China. Now, I don't know if that's true. I think it is, that Governor Ducey received that. I know that the federal government has issued, I don't know how many millions of dollars to the state of Arizona. I don't know how much money is coming to the city of Maricopa, but I know there's a sum, and I'll find that out. And unless I can go, you'd like to tell me that. But I want to see that money spent here, making our children better students, speaking our languages. I don't have anything against foreign languages. We're all immigrants. I'm third generation. I want to see our kids sharp. We've shut down, and in lieu of all these shutdowns and the mask and that whole fiasco, I just want to see something happen for us. And so
Absolutely.
I just thank you for hearing that, and God bless you.
Thank you, Christine. We appreciate you coming.
Yes,
We'll
and
look
God
forward to
bless
seeing you more in
America.
the future.
Yes,
Thank you so much. Anyone else at this time like to approach the podium?
Hello, my name is Jessica. Thank you for having me. I'm going to come more often to these meetings. I'm new at these meetings, but I want to get involved in my community. My main thing is the school and education. I don't know with our curriculums what we're teaching our children, but I want to know in our school system if we could teach them and have God back into our school systems and the Pledge of Allegiance back into our school systems, because it's very important that our children learn about God and have godly sense into their schools, because today with the schools, we don't know what the curriculums are teaching our children, and they have to have love for our country and love for our religions and stuff like that. So my main thing is the schools to get our Pledge of Allegiance and also God into our schools. That's the first thing that I wanted to bring up. The second thing is with what's going on with our country and also with our state, I want to make sure that our state here in Maricopa is secure with police at all times due to our Second Amendment's getting threatened right now. Also, with immigrants coming in, that everything is secure and that we're safe in our city and that we don't defund our police here at all. That's very important. I'm a freedom-loving American, so for me, I take the Constitution very seriously. So those are my main important things. Going forward, I might have more things that are on my mind that I want to address, but I want to make sure that our city is secure for all of us and our kids, and our school system too teaches our kids to love our country and teaches them about God. Because I hear a lot about our schools, and they're not doing Pledge of Allegiance, they're not having God into our schools, they're teaching them not to love our country, and that's not what our country's about. So that's all that I want to say for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. We appreciate it. Anyone else at this time? Okay, seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close the call to the public. Thank you very much for your participation today. That'll take us to the consent agenda. Council members, anything on consent that you wish to discuss or have questions on or pull at this time for further discussion? Yes, Vice Mayor.
Yes, I'd like to pull item 7.12, 7.13 for further discussion.
7.12 and 7.13
Yes,
for further discussion.
yes.
Okay. Anyone else at this time? Council?
Mayor,
Yes.
I apologize, I failed to tell you earlier, but we'd like to pull 7.4 off the agenda for consideration tonight in its entirety. It will come back at a later date.
Okay, so we'll basically pull off or table, do you need an official tabling motion, or?
You
Okay.
just pull it
So I'll
off.
pull it off, and then we'll move to a table, and then we'll deal with it. Okay, got it. All right. Anyone else at this time have questions or concerns? If not, council, can I have a motion to approve consent minus 7.4 and minus 7.12, 7.13 at this time? I have a motion from Councilmember Vitiello and a second from Councilmember Marsh. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. That'll take us to item 7.4, which upon the request of the city manager, we are asked to table at this time. Can I have a motion to table this item, please? I have a motion from Vice Mayor and a second from Councilmember Wade. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries and will be tabled till a future time. That'll take us to item 7.12 and 7.13. I'll turn the time over to you, Vice Mayor Smith.
Yes, I felt that this topic needed to be discussed some so that the public could hear and understand some of the logic that many of the council members are coming with. I received probably at least 24 emails about this topic, and I went back and forth on a couple of them, but it was so important to me to understand what the residents in Tortosa were thinking and feeling that I also attended the P&Z meeting, and I must say I learned a lot there. I thought it was a very, very informative meeting, and I had a lot of takeaways as well. So I wanted to talk about what I thought were the two main concerns in what I was perceiving from the input I was receiving from residents, that being traffic and the commercial aspect of it. So speaking first about traffic, the main concern was that adding 208 homes, rezoning and adding 208 homes was going to add to the traffic. One of the takeaways from the P&Z meeting was in actuality based on a very good presentation from the traffic engineer. It was actually deemed that with it being commercial, and I'm not sure I have this right, correct me if I'm wrong, but commercial would create 5 times more traffic than the 208 homes that would go in there, or apartment type homes that would go in there. So I think that eliminated a lot of concern for folks. However, there was a lot of discussion regarding the current buildup of traffic with the roundabout, and to me, that was a takeaway that meant I really wanted to understand more regarding what could be done associated with that traffic. So I did, and several of us actually spoke with the city manager. What I learned during the P&Z meeting was a lot of that traffic was due to the rush hour with school traffic and parents dropping off their kids. And in speaking with the city manager, he informed us that they have met with the school system there, and they have challenged them, and they have through the end of the summer, to figure out how to actually lessen the buildup of traffic to that school, which would definitely help in terms of the roundabout and progress in there. What I learned during the discussion was also that the Honeycutt was actually, its current capacity is 3,000 cars. Did I get that right?
Its capacity is 30,000?
30,000, thank you. And they're currently seeing, here I have it, they're currently seeing 8,000. So the capacity is there, we just have to make sure we understand what's going to happen with the roundabout and the school system, and hopefully that's going to produce something. But the city manager did say that we would monitor that over the next year or two, and if we ended up seeing a problem, we would end up doing something as a city. It's not actually a part of this project. It's not because it's already happening, and so it's not a concern for this project, but it is something that we want to keep an eye on. And with the request of the school system to prohibit that type of a buildup around the school and parents dropping off their kids, I'm going to hope that that we see an improvement in that aspect. So I wanted to provide that information because I want to make sure that the residents understand that they were heard, that I heard that information. And it's a good 2 years before these 208 homes are added. And so, that gives some time for us to evaluate and watch the process. Along with that, the main concern I had, and I know it's not about zoning, but I also understand this is our only time to talk about it as a city council tonight, is the main entrance exit does it have buildup? Is it going to create a buildup problem back to the Honeycutt and Hartman intersection? And a lot of concern was around that. And so the question would be down the line, are we able to move that further so that there's less of a chance of a buildup? So that is a concern for the residents who live in that area in terms of getting caught up in a buildup. I think that speaks at least to my takeaways for the traffic concern. And then the commercial aspect of it, I totally understand it when residents write emails and they say, we were promised commercial on those lots. And when you ask them who promised you that, it's not the city that promised that. It unfortunately is the sales offices for the homes who are promising that. And I think something for us all to understand is that at any point, zoning could change in any aspect on property within the city of Maricopa. And so, it's unfortunate that home sales were promising commercial there. The city did not promise commercial there. It was just zoned for commercial. However, I do want to make sure that everyone understands the property across the street on the southwest side is still zoned commercial. So should commercial want to come into that area, there is still a property. And then there's, what did you say, 200 acres down Hartman?
May I elaborate
Yes.
just a little bit?
Yes, go right ahead.
At Hartman and Bolin, there is 15 acres. There's 15 acres, as you mentioned. And the fact is, when you look at retailers, they want to look at traffic counts within a symmetrical area, 1 mile, 3 mile, 5 mile radiuses. And at that particular corner, you begin to pick up the Gila River Indian Reservation, which will never have any traffic. So no one's going to build a store that's not going to make it convenient for people to get to. So more than likely, you'll have a larger buildup at Bolin and Hartman, and then, of course, Farrell and Hartman and down, and there will be some at White and Parker and not White and Parker, Honeycutt, and there too, but probably smaller retail, but there is 15, 18 acres still at that intersection. Now, by contrast, the Sprouts project that's under construction now and everything it's bringing, that's 14 acres, all of it. So that's a lot of acreage. But the main thing is no one's going to invest that kind of money in a store that can't conveniently get people to its shopping center. So it will be there, but another half mile makes a better location than that particular location. And then one quick thing on the roundabout, if I may.
Yes.
The issue with the roundabout is people go in there and they say it reduces to one lane, and that concerns them. And frankly, I don't know why it was designed that way, but the truth of the matter is it's mostly for larger trucks so they can maneuver through there. But the ability to fix that by reducing the inner circle and widening it that way to have 2 clear-cut lanes is a fairly inexpensive process when the time comes and it's actually needed for that. And roundabouts are actually better than stop signals because people will stop and they hit their brakes and they gun it and they rev their engines and there's more pollution and traffic stops and doesn't flow as well. So the roundabout will work and will eventually be amended if needed. Like we said, we're only about 30% of the road capacity at present. So I think we'll find at the long term this will be a good project. I do anticipate that the 3 acres we reserve in this project will probably pick up a convenience type store, gas station where you can buy bread and milk and those type of things. And we are actively working with a number of people to do that. But remember, at the end of the day, it's about investors who are willing to spend their money to try to make a profit. Some people think the city just writes an ordinance and mandates someone come build a store. It just doesn't work that way. And I tell everyone when they say, when's this coming? I'll say, as soon as they can make a profit, they'll show up. And with the building that's going on, you have to have the rooftops first, and the retail will come. And with the building, not just this project, but everything else out there, trust me, it will come. There are already people talking to us conceptually, nothing formal, but there are already people speculating and beginning to think about opportunities out in that area. Thank you.
Yeah, so the information regarding the circle around an intersection and how developers look at that in terms of commercial, that was very helpful to me in regards to the research that I did. And if you imagine a circle around that corner, not only do you have Gila River, but you have the Ag Center to the west, and you have the test track to the south. So that circle, depending on how big of a stretch they take, actually has a lot of limitations in terms of what's not going to be built for residential. So I thought that was very important. So again, my takeaways were that you've heard the city manager talk about the roundabout. We brought it up during the CIP. I promised someone on an email I'd bring it up during the CIP capital improvement plan. We had this discussion. I'll keep track of it. I'll ask the city manager, or have we gone out and done an evaluation? I'll keep a lookout for that, and I'll hold them to the fact also that the school needs to do something about the backing up of traffic. Because if that's flowing into that roundabout, which a lot of residents said it was, we can't be having that. That's going to create a major problem. And then if the developers would kind of look at the entrance exit and see, are we going to have a problem there? Are the residents like probably just speculating that we will have a problem and we're not going to have a problem, and maybe you can speak to it, but this is my only chance to bring that up, and I wanted to do that. And then also, I had some questions about an exit onto Hartman, and my understanding is that the canal is owned separately from the land that's being developed, and if anyone can speak to if there's been any discussion on a crossing over it, even though it's separately owned, I think the residents would benefit from that discussion.
Well, it is a separately owned parcel of property, so we cannot, I mean, we could condemn property and force something to happen, but that's not our posture as a city to force people to do things. It is not part of their land, or we would have considered that, but the crossing of that canal is not only an expensive process, it's a timely process because it affects the irrigation district, the flood control district, stormwater, FEMA. There's just a lot of parties involved with that. And at the end of the day, the benefit of that would be so minimal that it's not worth the time and effort to do it.
I think if we're solving the traffic problems on Honeycutt and making sure that it's a safe environment, then we're going to be fine. Because I like this project, and definitely understanding the developer from a commercial aspect and understanding what segments aren't going to be built on. I completely understand that, so I do like this development. And so I just felt like it was time to have an open discussion with all of City Council, if anyone else has any additional thoughts.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Marsh.
I did some research on this project that we're talking about. It's called Honeycutt Run. It's a build-to-rent development, similar to the bungalows on Bolin. These are not for sale, they're for rent. And they're single-family homes, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom, horizontal single-family. This is a new invention. The birthplace of build-to-rent communities was Phoenix. And they're currently being built all the way across the Sun Belt, from Atlanta, Georgia to Maricopa. They're typically gated communities, so they're secure. They do background checks and employment checks on all people coming in to rent these homes. And they're great for millennials who haven't saved up a down payment to buy a house. They're also great for seniors who want to downsize on their last lap in life, take the money out of their homes to live on, and rent a smaller place. So they're very successful. They get built out quickly. They're quality homes. They usually have amenities like swimming pools and clubhouses. And they really sound like an ideal lifestyle to add to Maricopa. So I'm excited about the prospect of bungalows on Boland and Honeycutt Run coming to Maricopa. I think we're kind of blessed to have the prospect of two of these excellent type of communities coming to our city.
Thank you, Councilmember. Anyone else at this time? Okay, Councilmember, Vice Mayor, did you have your questions answered?
Yes,
and
most
have the-
definitely, and I
have
can
the
make a
discussion needed?
motion. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
if that would be the case, I think we're going to take them individually, as this one is a resolution. Do we need anything special on the ordinance, just normal? Okay. With that, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
All right, so given that, I move to approve 7.12.
Okay, there's a motion to approve 7.12. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Marsh? Sorry, I missed you on that one. I'll get you eventually. My apologies. So there's a first and a second. Is there any further discussion on this item at this time? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Vice Mayor, will you lead off on the motion?
Yes, I move to approve item 7.13.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second. Oh, sorry.
Second. I was looking at Councilmember Learman. Councilmember Wade is the second on that one. So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this as we move to the ordinance? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you very much for bringing that up and pulling it off consent so we could have that discussion. We appreciate it. At this time, that'll take us to item 8.1, which is the Mayor and City Council shall hear a presentation by Ron Fleming, Chairman and President of the CEO of Global Water Resources, regarding the rate case application. Ron, so come on up, take it away. Tell us about water in the city of Maricopa, state of Arizona.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. First off, I want to echo the Mayor's excitement from earlier. It's just great to be here. It's been, I was trying to think back, I think it's been a year and a half since I physically stood here and spoke to the council, and some of you weren't here, so great to be here in person with all of you. I did present, or my team and I did present in July, virtually. So in July of last year, last time we had the opportunity to kind of preview the rate case application that we were getting ready to file at the Arizona Corporation Commission. So today I'm here to give a little bit of a rate case update. But in addition to that, I'm here to talk about, I guess it would be fair to call it a challenge that we're turning into an opportunity. So as the mayor was alluding to earlier, and Councilman Marsh, there's lots of challenges on the waterfront right now. I'm not going to spend the time tonight on water resources, which is, been doing this for 20 years, is always fascinating. I'm happy to come back at your invitation, bring my water resources expert, and have a presentation just on that, if and when you ever would like to hear that and all the things we're doing on that front. But today, in addition to the rate case update, I'm going to focus on that challenge/opportunity, which takes the shape of really infrastructure and economic development. And there's a water resources component to it as well. So before I get to that presentation, I want to give a few overarching comments. So this challenge I'm about to present on is really the last remnant of the Great Recession for us as a company. And, I think you all recall and appreciate how difficult the Great Recession was on really this community as a whole, and you as a city, as an organization, and as us as well, as a community partner. So it was significant, but we've worked our way back, right? We've worked our way back step by step, brick by brick. Literally, look at this building that you're in, right? And so I'm going to use that as a little bit of an analogy. So, You built this beautiful facility because you bet on yourself as a city. You know what the future of Maricopa is about. And you did other projects like the probably one of the best municipal parks in the state with the multi-gin facility and everything that goes along with that. So imagine building these facilities 15 years ago, and then when the Great Recession hit, you never got to turn them on or utilize them because there's drivers that just caused that to happen. So beyond just not using them, which is sad, you got a little bit of taste of that with COVID this year in these facilities. You know, frankly, there's an economic burden that comes along with that if you're not able to collect fees that go along with that and how you finance the capital costs that go along with that. Well, we have that exact situation. We built, I'll talk about it in more detail soon, a lot of plant that because of the Great Recession never got turned on. So we're here to talk about how to turn what's been a 15-year burden or challenge into an opportunity for all of us and the city of Maricopa. Before I do that, one more last point. On that path back, I think that we collectively have also done it in a better way. And what I mean is our relationship with you as a city and the city council, I think from a service level perspective, so the way we interact with our customers, things we're doing on the water resources front, on the capital investment front, and I think that that is important to also recognize. And I think that that sets the right foundation for how we can approach and deal with this opportunity that I'm going to talk about tonight. Keep that momentum up. And so you just don't have to take my word for it. I do want to give a little bit of good news here at the front as evidence of what I'm talking about. So last night we had our rate case public comment session, so virtually held, put on by the Arizona Corporation Commission, as you know, oversees our rate cases. And they set aside 2.5 hours for that meeting. They typically do. Lots of structure to it. Well, the longest part of that meeting was the first 15 minutes where they walked through the mechanics of how people can come up and speak and what they can say and their time limits and all the other factors of the rate case. But I'm happy to say they didn't need the 2.5 hours because there was only 3 people on the call. 3 people other than the admin and the clerk that was assisting with the call. Those 3 people were the judge that's overseeing the rate case, Judge Haynes, and it was Commissioner Kennedy who called in to listen, and it was your city manager, Rick Horst. City Manager Horst, I'll call you that here. You know, he, as he always does in his expert way, was very professional in the way that he talked about the rate case. You know, not there to say that the city or any one of you or our customers, you know, supports rate increases, but to understand and respect and talk about the importance of what it is that we do and the value of the partnership that we share together. So we really appreciate City Manager Horst doing that. Then after that, the judge checked the queue and said, that's the only speaker. And we waited 20 minutes and no one else showed up. So I think, and I hope that that is the evidence that we all need to agree that we're doing things better here and right, and we can keep that momentum up. So with that, I will get on to the actual slides. So quick on the rate case overview, just as a reminder, our last rate decision was in 2014, and that was based on what's called a 2011 test year. So in our world, they take a snapshot in time, and that's what they analyze to set future rates. That snapshot in time was 2011, so a decade ago. So what we filed in the rate case asked if they were to approve exactly what we filed, and I think it's fair to say that never happens. They have a job to do and they do it. But what we filed, it would be a combined rate increase for water and wastewater of about 13% or $13.23 per month. It's important to recall, as I walked you through last time I was here, that we pre-stipulated and voluntarily agreed to a 3-year phase-in. So that increase would occur over 3 years, beginning in 2022. There was an element of rate consolidation in it. And again, happy to always spend the time with council and others as needed to explain these things in more detail. But at a high level, we are consolidating our utilities across Pinal County because there's really good rational regional planning reasons to do that, including economies of scale. So that does, a piece of that $13, just over $1 of it does come from the consolidation of our other utilities in Pinal County, and that's a per month dollar cost. However, as the last sentence says in that box, consolidation helps with other things that we're looking at moving forward, including the Southwest plant proposal that I'm presenting to you here tonight. Okay. So the rate request, the next box highlights the fact that it is far less than CPI since that 2011 test year. Over that period, just inflation alone has been 17%. And again, our rate application was for 13% phased in over 3 years. I'm going to skip the next box, go to expenses. We've excluded over $1 million in certain expenses. That's a one-for-one reduction in the rate recoveries that we're asking for from our customers. And then finally, just to highlight one more time, because there's another piece of it that I think is important, is that delayed effective date. So we agreed to not change rates until January 1st of 2022. Usually those rates are effective immediately at the conclusion of the rate case, which would be later in 2021. But as you know, we've been doing a prolonged rate phase-in here in the city from our prior rate case still, and that's been happening on January 1st. So we just thought, one, it'd be help get us further beyond COVID and everything going along on that front, but also just keep that nice cadence of a small phase-in each January 1st. Excuse me. So we propose that in our rate application as well. And the last sentence on that box, just to highlight it real quick, is we're not asking for recovery of the lost revenue in those years, and because of that phase-in, when lots of utilities do that, and they even ask for interest on that lost revenue, we've waived all that cost, which adds up to quite a bit of dollars. So that's a review of it. The box I skipped was called the Southwest Plan. So earlier I talked about the investment that we made that hasn't been used in 15 years. That is what we will call for the rest of the night, so you're familiar with it, the Southwest Plant. And I have a map to show you on that. But that was $32.8 million of plant we built prior to the economic downturn. We had voluntarily waived it from our last rate case. We did again in this rate case. Obviously, that's a substantial amount of money, so it had the effect of eliminating almost more of a rate increase than the rate increase that we actually filed, over 15% and roughly $17 per month. So moving forward, well, what is this challenge that we're now working together to turn into an opportunity? And again, working with your excellent city manager over a matter of months, we've just been talking about the multiple things that are going on from a timing perspective, and how can we put these various elements together to benefit both the city and Global Water. So just real quick on the background.
Ron, can you do me a favor and just point that microphone a little bit more to you?
Oh.
Yeah, when you talk that way, it kind of buzzes out and no one can hear you. So
Sounds good. I like to look around the room, so maybe
That's perfect. That's perfect.
I'll
Just
focus on you,
the microphone
Mayor.
will
How's that sound?
No, you're good.
All right. So you have to go back to, when we built this plant. It was 2005, 2006, 2007. And in fact, you may recall, a few of you, I was actually a project manager overseeing this. I built this plant personally. So, the city of Maricopa was the fastest growing city in the country. We were doing 600, 700, 800 homes per month. If you can imagine how busy it is now, and we're just getting back to about half of that. So the developers at the time believed that that type of demand would continue and that it would need more land brought into development. So more lots, right, to build homes on. So the landowners, developers south of the Auction started several projects. And the way it works is we're the utilities, the wet utilities. We are the biggest, the most expensive, and the deepest. So we go in first, unfortunately. We got to go in before the roads are paid. So we went in. We built the lines. We built the plants. We built an operational wastewater treatment plant, a water campus. And then the Great Recession hit. The housing market collapsed, and it was never turned on. So, but The good news is today, based on, again, the city of Maricopa, and that's the good news, right? Obviously, I think you're now back to the second fastest growing city in the state. Perhaps we'll get back into the national story here soon by the way things are going, but we're consuming available lots at a rapid pace. And so home builders / developers understand that based on what's going on across Metro Phoenix, there's not enough inventory. And so this area has multiple projects that are now moving forward. So, and I think that's one point there that I want to pause on. This would probably be occurring even if we hadn't built the plant 15 years ago. You could think about it this way. The drivers would still all be there, and the foundation of building new communities down there has already been set. So sure, we've borne the pain of that 15 years, but today, you got to reverse it. The past is the past. Today, that puts us in kind of the catbird seat. We have physical infrastructure, and importantly, we have a designation of assured water supply down there, which goes to the water resource issues that we won't spend time on today. But needless to say, if we hadn't moved to that area and built the plant, we wouldn't have an assured water supply down there because it traveled with the physical plant. So having physical plant with the way materials are going today and job shortages, labor shortages, having an assured water supply with the issues on that front, it actually is going to attract growth when otherwise it wouldn't. So we would be down there trying to build it right now with the constraints of today if we hadn't built it. So past is the past. I prefer to look at it as an opportunity. So let's take advantage of that opportunity. So there's some specific projects moving forward. Things obviously down Highway 238, further up the west side. A project called Amarillo Creek literally is, well, I'm not sure how much of this is confidential, so I won't say the details, but let's just say they will be our customers soon, and we're actively reactivating the plant because they believe they will have homes up in the next year or so. So what's the challenges and what are we trying to do? So how do we turn that into a win? Well, lots going on southwest of the city of Maricopa today. So the idea would be to physically activate that plant and interconnect it for all of those developments, which is obviously what you do in a planned regional utility like we have here in the city of Maricopa. So there are some challenges though, because physically interconnecting all those areas requires notable infrastructure, and there's some operational considerations. Second, we have to figure out the recovery of that investment that's been stranded there for 15 years. So how do we do that? Next, what is the bill impact then on our customers? You know, any solution that we pursue has to consider and manage the rate impact, just like we've attempted to do in our current rate application. And on the side of those challenges, there's always these other things you got to think about. So all of this has to fit within our ACC regulatory paradigm. Lots of rules down there that, as a highly regulated utility, lots of rules that we have to think about and follow. Then on timing, there's the current rate case, there's all this economic development going on, there's annexation discussions down there, there's other things going on. So how, again, do you put it all together? So here's our proposed pathway to address those challenges. One, on the physical interconnection, I just think it's important to say as an option tree goes, it is not an option to just not serve and not be part of a solution that allows that area to move forward. So if you're going to move forward, let's do it in a way that is the most beneficial for long-term, regional, sustainable, efficient utility management. So that's a plan we're putting together on the engineering side. On the next thing is then challenge 2, how do you get the required recognition of costs? There's 2 options. There's the normal rate-making process. And now I'm going to pause on that one. So what does that mean? That would mean plant is already built, but we're turning it on. If not, we would be building it now anyway. But we've got a current rate case going on. Well, what typically would be done is utilities would go back in for another rate case day 0 after the current rate case. because it's a major investment and now it's being used. We don't want to do that. We don't think it's best for our customers. We don't think it's best for you as a city. We don't think it's best for us as a company, frankly. We'd rather attempt to solve it in a way that it reduces the time, the impact, the resources, and we get on with working together as we've done on the bigger challenges, right? Supporting economic development, figuring out the water resources stuff, and just find a way that we can finally fit this infrastructure into a rate solution. So we're not going to, at least at this point, we're not proposing to file back-to-back rate cases. We are proposing a phase 2 approach. So what is a phase 2 approach? So it's a little bit of a novel concept, but it has been done through multiple rate cases, both on the water and power side in the past, which is if there's an issue that bubbles up in a rate case that's really big and a little bit complicated, don't try to shove it into the existing active rate case. Instead, have all parties agree that it is a significant matter, but it can be put on the side and dealt with differently. So that's what we're proposing, is to take this phase 2 approach and basically take the Southwest plant item and put it in a box. Now, we do need to go get the idea of a phase 2 structure approved by the Corporation Commission, and we'll finish the presentation on that point. But once, let's assume we do get that approved, then it goes into a box and we complete the current rate case. And when that rate case is over, you open the box, you put it back on the table. But you don't have to go through a full 2-year, $1 million full rate case process because we just concluded one. We can do an accelerated kind of mini rate case where they take all the determinations of the last rate case and just apply them to that issue. So that would be the structure of the proposal. So what do you do on item 3? Managing the impact to customers. Well, there's 2 things you can do. One, reduce the absolute cost. So bring down the capital cost to turn it on and to interconnect these systems and provide that service that we talked about. That, again, is an opportunity. And there's also, as we've done before, we can always agree to delay and phase in any rate increases related to that phase 2 Southwest plant. So that is what we're proposing, is to do all those things. First, delay and phase in. The next slide walks you through how we're proposing that. But on this slide, I'll pause it a little bit on the second thought, which is lower the capital and finance costs. So how are we doing this? Again, trying to leverage the partnership that we have here with the city. Is maybe there's ways we can get federal grants to assist with some of this, and we're working on those, or other federal relief opportunities. You can continue to value engineer, just bring down the cost. And I believe I have, frankly, the best team in the state on that, and they prove it over and over again. And we will continue to value engineer and reduce the actual capital cost for everything we talked about. And there's a concept called hookup fees. So developers also have requirements to contribute to plant, right? Similar to an impact fee with the city. Just they don't fund all of it inside of an investor-owned utility. We finance some of it with our capital. They finance some of it with their contributions. So hookup fees, those contributions will continue to come in, and whatever comes in, we can't project it because we don't really control when they hit certain triggers where those contributions become due. But whatever comes in, we will use to offset the cost, so it will lower this capital cost as well. And then finally, growth. All this growth does help. Growth goes into the numerator and the calculation. So when this plant is used years down the road, when we go back in for a phase 2, all this growth will go into it, including that consolidation that I talked about earlier, and it will reduce the impact per customer. So specific to managing that rate impact, to be a little bit more specific on what we're proposing, we want to, we're just going to agree to delay the phasing in of any rates associated with the Southwest plant until after the current rate case. So by the proposal we talked about earlier, 3 years of phase-ins starts in 2022, so that's 2022, 2023, 2024. Again, there's no guarantee that that's what we're going to get from the Corporation Commission, so that could be adjusted or shortened. But our proposal is, even though the plant's getting turned on now, we'll be serving homes down there within the year, we would put any additional rate increase on the back end. So those would likely be based on our current proposal, 2025, 2026, 2027. So if you step back and think about that, what we're saying is we're effectively between the two agreeing to another 6-year phase-in, which is what we did in the last rate case. So the bill impact by our projections specific to the Southwest plant would be around 4% per year in those years, 2025, 2026, and 2027. A few bullet points here, just to provide a little bit more color. That only allows for a recovery on our capital investments. Increased expenses are not part of the calculation, and we won't be including them. They will just be considered in future rate cases. Customer growth, I mentioned, will be considered, and our current, or whatever is approved in our current rate case on a cost of capital and capital structure will be applied, along with other factors. So with the highlight at the bottom, the important note I put at the bottom, what does it mean? Well, this is a proposal to work with the city to accomplish some of our shared long-term interests. Ultimately, it's the ACC that has the final decision. They'll accept the phase 2 approach, they won't. They'll run it through the rate case, mini rate case process if we get the phase 2 approved, sped out rates at the end, and all of that will be determined ultimately by them. But this would be the way we would approach them. And of course, we didn't want to approach them with this without first coming to you as our primary group of customers here. So I think it's just factual to say, this is my last slide, that the city support on this is required for success. So what does not being successful looks like? It means, well, I'll be working with the city manager again, figuring out what would we do next if they don't take the phase 2 approach. But you know, I'm hopeful that with the proposal that we outlined here today, with the drivers that we outlined here today, that the phase 2 approach can be supported by the city. We can work together. You can maybe even support some of the other policy tools we have in the current rate case. And so what does it mean? Which is the box on the right is, you know, just some in-person support. Join us instead of us going down there standalone and working different angles, which is typically what I would say utilities do. We'd like to walk in there with our largest client and get the ACC staff and the RUCO staff, the residential utility consumer office staff, to appreciate why this is the best approach in the long term for our customers, for the city, and for us. I mean, ultimately, the goal is a triple win versus, you know, slogging it out. So that's it. I think I covered all the main points that I wanted to cover here today, but I will close again by circling back to where I started, which is just, you know, we truly value and appreciate the partnership that we do have here with the city, and we value and appreciate how far we've all come together, and we look forward to the success of the city over the next 5 to 10 years and our part of that. Thank you. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. Council, any questions for Ron at this time? Yes, Councilor Wade.
Hi, Ron. Thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it. Mine is kind of an esoteric question. What kind of response did Commissioner Kennedy give you with the lack of people participating? Was she surprised? What did she expect, something of that nature? Did she give you any indication?
So, thank you, Councilman Wade. So, the judge asked Commissioner Kennedy after City Manager Horst spoke if she had any questions for the city manager or any questions based on some of the comments that were made. And she said she didn't have any questions. And that was the extent to which she spoke on the call. And we have not spoken with her since. Thank you.
Anyone else this time? You know, boy, this is This is a very large topic, and there's so much more to this. And Ron, I just wanted to thank you for coming tonight and for your progress in the joint approach, working with the city to find that balance that represents the customer first, and ultimately trying to find that it's an elusive line, because as you know, water is such a depreciating resource and asset, and I have a 2-hour meeting tomorrow, I think it is, or later this week, about this basin study, and we've talked about it many times. But again, we all expect to turn on our water. We all hate paying our utility bills. Sorry, no offense, but we all hate doing it. But the fact of the matter is, when we turn on that water, we expect it to work. And the fact of the matter is, there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of supervisory jurisdiction with the ACC and the judges and all these things that have to happen. But I just wanted to give Global, some kudos in the fact that, you were honest and forthright in your stay out, just like we agreed upon. What was it, 7 years ago now? By the time this goes into effect, it will be the full 8 years. And I know that, you and I personally went and met with the commissioners at the time to ask them not to bring this case in, if not needs be. But I know because of the issues in Queen Creek and Santan, with other agencies that are large water companies, that, the poor customers there went to turn on the water and it didn't work. And it, came out sludge and bad things were happening. And so, they had to take over that. And so, with that, that's the worst thing that the ACC wants to do. They don't want to run water companies, and the city, from an economic development standpoint, certainly doesn't want those water companies being run by the ACC and or not being successful. So again, I would certainly urge the customers and the consumers and the citizens of this city to certainly come to the council with questions, certainly go to you all with questions. I think that is something that is very different than 7-8 years ago. It was a little more adversarial, and it doesn't have to be when the education is provided. I know that you have done a very good job of going to all the HOAs, really getting out there early. Like you said, you were here giving us essentially the same presentation, without the updates here, 12 months ago. So you certainly kept us all apprised along the entire way, and we certainly appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Well, anybody else at this time have any comments or concerns? Thank you, Ron. We appreciate the update, and we'll certainly have you back to talk more about water in the state of Arizona.
Always happy to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is 8.2, the Mayor and City Council's here presentation by City Manager Rick Horst on fund allocation and infrastructure recommendations regarding the American Rescue Plan. I think this is especially timely considering we had a few folks that approached us at the call to the public talking about the desire for that money that Congress is allocating to stay here and to be put towards a greater good. And so, Rick, tell us about some of your thoughts and ideas there.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate your time tonight. If I may, I'd like to make a few comments on the previous presentation first. First, I think everyone understands, but to make it clear for our audience, the Arizona Corporate Commission is there to protect the taxpayer, and they're going to do their job in a very lengthy and tedious process. I think, Council, all of you know that I've been at this well over 3 decades now, getting closer to 4 decades. And during that time, I have managed cities who operated utilities, wastewater, water, telecommunications, electric, gas, all of those type of things. And I can statistically prove through my own experience, but the experience and statistics that are out there, that public utilities owned by local governments, with rare exception, have the ability to do utilities better and at lower costs. Those communities that claim to not raise rates are those communities like Flint, Michigan, where they are not taking care of the water systems and doing things. So in my position now, having done both, I welcome the opportunity to have a partner who is conscious not only about their systems, but they understand that, like we do, Could you imagine if we didn't build roads or the infrastructure we're tasked to build? And by the way, we do hate paying utility bills, but kind of hate paying taxes too, right? But we do that, and as the good lady back here said, we don't mind paying our way if we get what we pay for. So I just wanted to stress that the opportunity to work through this program and this progress with a phased-in approach, because most would just say, boom, here it is, and you're done and move on. And I can tell you, when it's a locally government-owned utility, you don't have near the process that you have that we're going through now with the Corporate Commission. So with that, I wanted to take a moment and update you and council. You've seen this before, but so it's mostly for the audience. The American Rescue Plan. And regardless how you feel about the large amount of money that taxpayers are going to be paying for the next few generations, it would be a disadvantage to our citizens to not accept that money, because the only return that we're going to get, because we're going to pay for it no matter what, is to bring something into our community that would benefit our community, thus not increasing taxes somewhere else. Now, this council has made it very clear that we're going to lower our city taxes, and then we'll save that for another day. But we wanted to walk through staff's proposal, which we presented to the council, and how we might best utilize these funds. We're getting approximately $12 million. The Federal Register indicated 12.44 as I looked at it today. Our goal is to build infrastructure projects that the entire community can benefit from. And part of this will show you how not only will you benefit from it, but may actually reduce other costs in other areas. So if I can figure out how to turn slides, it's one of these buttons. Probably not that one. I had 4 choices. I picked the wrong one. I'm underqualified for this job.
You're city manager, not an
Thank
IT
you.
guy.
I should have stayed over there and said, flip them. So the first thing is roughly $12 million, and we've looked at a $6 million package for transportation projects and a $6 million plus a $3 million additional grant for a utility project. We'll walk through these a little bit individually as we go through, but I'd like to start with the utility project because it spins off of the presentation we just had. As we bring that water plant back online and as we see the growth of the city, and it's interesting, without the utilities, you can't build homes, and without homes, you can't increase the population, and without the population, you can't get stores and restaurants and hospitals and all those other services we need. But it all starts with infrastructure. You may remember, council, my first meeting was, what about infrastructure? All this stuff is great, but unless we put in the bones, the skeleton, none of the rest of this matters. So the proposal here is to take a new transmission water line up the west side of the future planning area of the city, essentially to the west side of Allocation up to the 238, and create this new corridor of opportunity. And this water line is roughly a $10 million project, but it will provide water for future growth. And by using the Rescue Act money, and it's actually $3.5 million that we're going for in a separate grant, which I'll address in just a minute, to pay for that without it having to go into the rate considerations for your water bill. So we can do this and not include that, so you save money on a lesser water bill. Plus, we're not going to spend your tax dollars to build it because, well, we are because it's the federal tax dollars, but we're not going to double dip you. We can now do those things, and while we work on reducing your local taxes, to kind of begin to offset some of the burden that comes to us at the federal level, which we can't control. So our mayor and council says we can't control those guys in Washington, but we sure as heck can control what happens here, and they're very, very conscious about that. So I'm going to just take a minute and walk through these projects. The Water Resources Development Act is a program that Representative Stanton and our mayor helped champion to come forward. All of our council actually participated in the process in one way or another. And this was a dedication of $150 million only to the state of Arizona, so we don't have to compete federally and nationally for some of these grants. They're smaller grants intended to address water issues. And so have already put in a preliminary application for $3.5 million to support this West transmission line. We will also probably follow up in year 2 and 3 with a utility pipeline, railroad crossing, and an aquifer recharge facility. The process of getting underneath the railroad track is very, very difficult. You know, at first time-wise and expense-wise, but getting underneath the tracks, you know, thought it was hard getting over, try getting under. And the mayor can tell you that story. And then the aquifer recharge facility, which is a unique idea, which again, Global Water is championing, is we have sufficient waters that we want to put back into the aquifer so we don't waste it. And it's my understanding that Councilmember Marsh shared today that, you know, we have some of the deepest aquifer in our area, and we're only using a small section of that surface. But at the same time, we're thinking about tomorrow and the next day, and the water credits that we can get from this are significant. And if you think rates are really going to jump up, if you have to go out and start buying water resources, they're going to jump up. But if we can create and maintain our own water, we can keep those costs under control, and I think that's an important part of it. So part of it would be to move forward with that water line using 3.5 from this grant, and I will tell you it's not guaranteed, but I think our chances are pretty good that we're going to get this because it's dedicated for our city, and frankly, you know, the competition isn't out there to get in our way, and this is a legitimate project. The other is, as you know, we have road problems. Now, 347 is not our road. It belongs to ADOT. It sits on a sovereign nation's land, which they own the land that it sits on. They just have a right-of-way or an easement. It's partly in Maricopa County, partly in Pinal County, and it affects a lot of things. And frankly, there's been good progress on beginning to resolve some of those issues. The council has reported through the efforts of Brett Robinson, the $35 million that's been set aside to begin to look at an overpass at Riggs Road, which will help. But there's two pieces to solving that problem. One is to help people get in and out. The second is to create jobs here so they don't have to get in and out, and they can just stay here and work. So we're working all of those angles. But our biggest problem is right here at Smith Inky and John Wayne Parkway. So our plan would be to create 2 dedicated right turn lanes going north on the 347. This is traffic that would not have to stop at a red light, so they can turn and merge and keep traffic flowing, not unlike you see on I-10 and some of these intersections. We will also create a double left turn lane for those cars wanting to turn south. And as you know, the predominant growth is on the east side and will continue to be on the east side for many years to come. What that allows us to do is better synchronize the timing of our lights so the traffic can flow through the whole city a little bit better. So the next component of that is to, if you remember, there's an entrance right behind CVS and a bottlenecks there. That entrance would move way down, allowing for deeper stacking lanes for the right and left-hand turns, so more traffic can move at a shorter signal time, allowing them to move out and disperse quickly, and then a longer stacking lane for cars getting to go in. That will actually be the new intersection when that land is developed, so that's the right location and will not be a throwaway project. Another bottleneck is at Lakeview Drive. Other side is cobblestone. Particularly, a lot of people cut through there and they want to turn right to get on 347. This project would expand the bridge a little bit and create a dedicated right turn that would allow them to go up and then just a slow merge, so again, they would not have to stop. I will also say we're working with ADOT, and although it's a couple of years out, we do have funding to create a third lane at about where the CVS is. You know, there's that lane that makes you turn left, and you got people going left and trying to merge right. We'll have a dedicated third lane and a separate one, but that's a few years out, not part of this particular project. We also want to improve Garvey. Garvey will become a major corridor with the new court complex and county complex and other facilities up there. It's also probably the worst road in the entire city and needs to be repaired as a part of this project. As we see development going west, and we have a few projects out there, we have the Ackland Dairy project coming on, we have the Larry Miller project coming on, we have others in discussion, there's the Apex project out there and other developments that want to annex in the future. We got to improve 238. So although the developers will improve portions of that road, there's other portions that we want to complete, so we're not 4 lanes, 2 lanes, 4 lanes, 2 lanes, and increase this opportunity to fix all of that along that corridor. So that project would also, funds would also pay for that project. And I think that's the last one. We think we do have some other projects that will be kind of backup projects if funding comes in, not funding, but the costs come in lesser than what we expected. But again, we feel this will solve and benefit every single resident of our community. It will allow us to grow our community economically, and it will help us roll back cost for our public, not only through their water rates with this proposal, but through projects that the city does. So, Council, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, that concludes my presentation.
Council, questions at this time? Yes, we'll start with Councilmember Vitiello and then Councilmember Wade.
Rick, thanks for the presentation. I get a lot of people complaining about when you make the left going north on Smith-Ankey, so you make the left of Smith-Ankey to 347. You have that lane that goes into Cobblestone, and then they have to shoot over. And I constantly hear people saying that they coming from the south to the north, everybody uses that lane and in the last second tries to shoot over, and if they don't shoot over because people don't let them in, they get stuck behind them 4 or 5 cars. Will there be any type of fix there or a sign to let people know a little sooner? I know there is one, but it doesn't seem to work. So,
Well, if I could be honest, these are the people who don't want to slow down to the posted speed limit, who are trying to jockey in front of somebody else and
Correct.
hoping for an opportunity to cut over. So if we all swear allegiance to the driver's license we get, that problem would go away. But that's not the way it works. This project does not address that, but we can certainly look at signage or turn ahead or whatever. I think our long-term solution to this, and I'll just lay it out there quickly, as you know, we're working on what we call the Green Road Beltway, which we talked about in our futures planning, and I would encourage our audience, if they're interested, to go look at our future plannings slide, which would create a new right turn off of 238 before you get to the city and swing over to 340 over to 238. So all the truck traffic, most of that truck traffic's coming down wants to turn, and it's really the trucks that make it hard for people to get in. As you know, we're proposing the study money in this year's budget to begin to move that forward, and the other aspects of Green Road that are moving forward this year. We think that ultimately will resolve a lot of the issues, but we also just ask, when you drive that 17 miles in the Indy 500 coming through there, and people are doing this, it's hard to stop when you hit that sign that says, "Welcome to Maricopa." But we hear what you're saying, but all of this should help, and it should increase traffic awareness and traffic safety for all of our people as we go forward.
Thank you. Councilmember Wade.
Thank you, sir. Would you mind going back to your slide there, which shows Walgreens, the turn for 238?
If I can figure out how.
I'm sorry. I apologize for that.
The angels in the back room are listening. So which one was it again?
The one where
By
Walgreens-
CVS?
Yes, where CVS is, yes.
That one?
So this entryway, or leading on to the right turn there at Smith-Acre going down to 238, is that the one that's before the restaurant and just east of the professional buildings there?
Well, you got the IHOP, and then you have that kind of open corner where the horse statues are, then you got CVS across the street.
That
We
would be
will,
the IHOP there. Denny's.
Denny's,
Oh, Denny's,
thank you,
yeah.
Denny's,
So one of the
that
biggest.
breakfast place.
Yes. One of the problems that I always experience, and people talk about as well, is when you're coming out of there and you want to make a left turn onto Smith Inc., trying to go across those lanes of traffic. Is there any
Solution?
conversation or thoughts about trying to improve that spot right
Yeah,
there?
instead of trying to turn right there, swing back, go back to the light and get in so you can get over safely. You know, people really just want to take shortcuts all the time. There is a safe way to do that. If they just leave Denny's, come back down past the bank
No,
that's there.
that's not where I'm speaking of. I'm speaking of across where the professional buildings are. And then I think I don't know if that's Arby's or what that is right there, but when you're going from from west to east, going across,
Are you talking on the west side of 347?
that would be the west side of 347. Yes, the west side of 347, that's
So
correct.
those medical buildings and where Ace
Right,
Hardware and all that
exactly.
back
So
there.
going across, I don't know, is there a possibility maybe put some type of lane identifiers or lane restrictors so that people don't stop right there, or gives you safe passage to make your turn on?
This project will include some restriping of that area, so people know to merge in before they start going this way, with some delineations, but it's just a restriping to help with that. We do anticipate that ultimately there'll probably be another signal further back, but it just doesn't warrant that at this point in time. But I think I understand what you're saying. Again, you got the cross merge. You got people turning right, trying to move over, and then people coming straight who want to move over. So we're going to try to stripe it so people know to move in quicker, and the others wait until they get past a certain spot to know to move to the right. It won't solve all the problems, but it should help.
All right, thank you.
Council members, any other questions? City Manager Horst at this time.
Just don't ask me to move the slides.
Build us a road, but don't move the
Thank
slides.
you.
All right, thanks, got it. All right, Councilmember, do you have something? Okay. Well, with that, thank you very much for your participation this evening. That concludes our presentations and our city council meeting. We will stand adjourned for 2 weeks. And council, can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Motion, a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll see you soon.